YouTubers. Today I just want to take you along as we build our 4-foot by 6-foot raised garden bed. Something we wanted to do for a while but never got around to it, and in the store these things $100, $200, $300, $400, $500 for something this big. So I bought some raw materials from the local hardware store, or big box supply store, and we should hopefully be getting it done for around $100. And I mounted my GoPro to my hat, so you'll be following along with me through pretty much the whole thing. Hope you enjoy. Thanks. The first thing we're going to do is build this this inner frame structure. It's going to be 6 feet wide by 4 feet, well, 6 by 4 feet. So that is the main part that's going to hold all the weight of this thing. So it's going to be made out of 2x4s and covered in plywood, and then we'll wrap it in our 1x8s to make the walls, and the legs will go all the way from the top to the bottom to support those walls. So follow along as we go. We'll just start cutting up some 2x4s. I know we need 1, 2, 3, 4. They're going to be at 45 inches because the 2x4 is 1.5 inches wide. So by the time the outer two 2x4s get added to it, we'll be at 48 inches. And the sides will be 6 feet long because we're looking for a 4x6. Alright, we've got all our pieces cut. Now we're going to screw the outer parts together, the 4 pieces that make the outside border. I'm doing it on a nice flat concrete surface in the garage. Doesn't have to be perfect, but as close as you can get it. Not all the wood's straight or square, so we do what we can. That one we'll redo. This wood's very wet from the store. It's very tough to screw. There we go, nice and tight. Now, there's going to be 2 ribs inside of it, 2 frame sections in here, but we're not going to put those in right now because we're going to cut the plywood next. We'll screw the plywood to it so that way we know this is square, and then we'll go ahead and put the ribs in from the other side once the plywood is down and we know this is square. So now we've got our plywood sitting on the trailer and it's marked. Hard to see, it's just a pencil mark, but what I wanted to show you was a little trick for if you don't have horses laying around like I don't right now. You can just set the depth of the blade to cut through the wood and not much more. This is a fairly old trailer, so if I scratch it up a bit, I'm not too worried about it. The deck can always be replaced. So here we go. I don't like to walk around with the saw running. Makes a nasty line and then risks me, so it's safer to just stop, reposition yourself, and go for it some more. There we go. Cut through and barely any marks in the trailer anywhere. So we've got our plywood cut, and now, like I said before, we're going to use the squareness of the plywood sheet to square up this frame, because only screwed in 4 corners, it moves and bends pretty easy. We're not going to use the 2.5-inch screws that we used for the corners. We're going to use these 1 5/8. They're painted. Doesn't really matter. They don't have to be, but that just happens to be the screws I have laying around. So we'll kind of line up a corner. Get it, make sure it's as square as possible. Probably just pick the best corner to make sure it's square. Like this one looks pretty darn good. So does this one. Oh, she's coming out pretty good. A little bit off here, if you can see that, a little tiny bit. So we'll figure that out in a minute. So this is probably our best corner to start with. So let's screw that one down. No pre-drilling through the plywood or the OSB board. It's pretty soft. Okay, now we'll go back to this other corner that was off just a hair and see how we can move this around. We're bringing the structure into square using the plywood. Now I know it's just a garden box, doesn't have to be perfect, but the closer you get, the better. So with 2 secured, you're not going to move the other 3 or 4. One 2 are secure, the other 2 are not going to move anymore. So at this point, that little tiny bit off is fine. And now I'll just go around and finish securing it. The plywood is now screwed all the way around. It's as square as we're going to get it, which is pretty darn close and good. So now we're going to turn it over and yeah. Now we can turn it over and measure for where we're going to place those extra ribs. So we've got 6 feet, so I think we'll put one every couple of feet. We'll do one at 4 and one at 2. That'll give us the support that we need. So we're putting our ribs in now. It's a pretty tight fit, so a little help from a hammer. We got a nice snug fit. So now we'll drill. We'll drill 2 holes here, drill a couple holes there, screw all this stuff together, and then we will move on to the next steps. Just like when we were squaring up the frame with the sheet of plywood, we secured one corner, then we forced it all to line up and then secured the rest of it. So it's a similar item with something as simple as putting in these ribs. See how the board is slightly raised? What we can do is use the pressure of this board that's getting squeezed in there to really line this up, and then we'll drill our pilot holes. And while I'm holding pressure down on it, I'll secure it, and then we're assured as straight as possible. And there we go. I'll do the same thing to the next one. We know we want the tops of the walls, which are going to be 2 of these. We want the top of the wall to be 30 inches off the ground, or 30 inches high. So we're going to have the legs going from the very top of the wall all the way to the ground. So we're going to cut some 2x6s and 2x4 for the legs. And the reason we use a 2x6 and a 2x4 is just because when they come together, this length right here from here to here will be very similar to here to here. It'll be a ½ inch off, but I figured it looked better than this with just a 2x4 on this side. It just looks a little more symmetrical. I could cut the 2x6 down that ½ inch, but like I said before, the wood's pretty wet and pushing it through the table saw is going to be pretty difficult. Some people are good enough or fast enough and have enough experience with it to account for the thickness of the blade, and they'll measure 30, then 30 and an eighth, 30 and a quarter, 30 and whatever, 3/8, and they'll just keep chopping and chopping and chopping. Everything will come out the same. But for some reason, that doesn't go that well for me. So I just keep remeasuring and remeasuring. Look at that. I didn't even need the other second 2x4, 2x6. So that can be returned and we'll get $8 back. So we might squeeze in under $100. We'll see. This is how we want the leg to work. We want the 2x6 on one side, the 2x4 on the other, and then they're going to be screwed down in here from the outside inside. Of course, it's going to be, the floor will be set higher into it by the height of the wall boards. But this is what I was talking about when I wanted a 2x6 and a 2x4, because now you got, I think this is 5.5 and this is like 5 inches. So by the time it's all screwed together tight and painted, you might not see this difference of length, and it won't look as awkward. So same thing again. We're going to pre-drill holes down this 2x6, screw it to the 2x4. We'll build all 4 legs, and then we'll figure out how to raise this up or lay it on its side and start mounting those. We've got our holes pre-drilled in the 2x6, and we're going to screw it to the 2x4. And of course it's going to be a little tricky here because this is flopping. So we'll use our heads a little, lay the 2x4 in there because this is also a 2x4. Line it up as good as we can and at least get our first screw in. And again, we're securing one end, and then we'll go down to the other end, line it up, and secure, and then finish screwing in the rest. So we've got all 4 legs built to this point, screwed together. Now remember, we were saying the legs are going to go all the way to the top of the wall. So what we're going to do is we can measure this. We can say it's 14.5 inches tall, or we can just line it up, give it a little extra play, a little bit of room there, and measure or mark it right there. Now we know where this line is going to be the top edge of that plywood surface. We've got the base stood up, we've got our mark from earlier on the wall, and we pre-drilled the holes as usual. We set our first hole. And now, just like everything else, we've put 1 screw in, and now we'll try to line this up so it's as square as possible to the base, and then we'll put some more screws in. Make sure we're still decently lined up, which it looks like we are. Get some more screws in there, and then we'll pre-drill on this side another 4 or 5 holes, and we'll go all the way around and do all 4 corners like that. So we've got all 4 legs and all 4 corners on, And what we're going to do now is we're just going to hide a 2x4 inside here, because there's 5 screws from this side, 5 screws from that side, but this thing's 4x6. You fill it with a foot of dirt. This is going to be a lot of weight, especially when it's full of water. So just to make sure that nothing really can fall down or hurt somebody when we're working on it, we're going to put a 2x4 in here at every corner that's going to support this 2x4 and that 2x4. If you put it this way, you're not going to support this one. You're only going to catch that one. Is this going to break apart? Probably not. But just to make sure, we're going to hide one in here. You can't see it from the inside, and these are just trimmings from the other boards anyways. So we've got all 4 legs on, all 4 legs secured. The next step is to take the wall boards and cut them to length, and basically just put them in and screw them to the legs, and that'll be it for this main structure. Then we're going to drill a whole bunch of holes in the floor to let the water drain. We'll probably put some screening in, and yeah, we'll take her one step at a time here. So next step is, we know the base is 4 feet by 6 feet. That's the measurement we want to stick with. If we need to press and hammer those boards in, that's what we're going to do, because if you stick to the measurements, it's all going to be dimensionally correct, and it should keep itself square, unless you run into some real problems with a ton of pressure on a board, but I don't think we will, because the legs squared up pretty good. First 2 boards are cut. So let's see, we took these to exactly 4 feet, and there's a little pressure here, not much, a little bit. Let's see how the next one goes. Pretty good. Decent fit. Not too shabby. We'll cut the rest and get them all in, and then we're just going to screw them in each corner. Got our end boards in, and now we just need to take away from the 6-foot length on the sides. We're going to take away 1.5 inches, because each board is 3/4 inch thick. Times 2, that's 1.5 inches. So we should end up at I think 58.5 inches. Correction, 6 feet is not 60 inches. It is 72 inches. So as you can tell, I already cut the board, and of course it's too short. I cut it again, it was still too short, so it looks like we're gonna have to buy another replacement board. So now I've learned that 6 feet is 72 inches, and I need 70.5 inch length for these sideboards. We've got our sideboards cut. Let's see if it fits. A little snug, but that'll work. Top board, a little snug, but again, that'll work. Let's get the rest cut and put in. Not feeling like going to the store, I'm just going to screw this board back together and recut it to the right length. So I use a couple of trimmings, or one piece of trimming, grab the original part of the board that was here, make sure everything's kind of straight and square, and just screw it back together. Luckily I had some screws laying around that worked just right. Yeah, that should work. When you're screwing screws together like this, really take your time and make sure you don't screw your finger. And then make sure you have band-aids at home when you're doing work like this. Well, not too bad, but lesson learned. Alright, all the boards went in. They don't sit perfect, because these are just the low grade, low quality, basic timbers from our store. They have premium grade, but that's a lot more money. So you can see there's some of them that are a little taller than others, but we'll hammer them down the best we can. We'll screw into every corner, and that should be it for now. Then we'll, for the main structure at least, then we can drill the holes in the base to let the water flow. If I have to go to the store, pick up some mesh. We weren't actually going to use mesh, but my mother-in-law with her green thumb said we really need the water to drain through. So that's what we're going to do. Like I said before, these boards are not dimensionally perfect. You can tell there's no gaps, no nothing, but they still come off just a little bit. And that's alright. It's just a little gardening box. So we're securing the last corner now. And next steps will be to start drilling the holes in the floor, I think. Excellent. Solid. So we're ready to drill some holes in the floor now. I know I got the rib support somewhere around here and the other one around here. So basically I'm just going to put probably 1, 2, like 8 holes in each portion. So just a matter of drilling. So we've got our holes drilled. We did a few extras, so now we have 12 holes in each quadrant-ish. And I just want to work on this little edge right here. It's not major, but if we're going to paint it and make it look decent, we might as well make it look as good as we can. So I'll just slowly knock that off and kind of feather it out to the edge, and then we'll sand the whole thing down so the kitties don't catch any slivers on these edges. We'll put some mesh in the base, and then we'll head off to the store to get some paint. It finally stopped raining after a few days of torrential downpours here. We continued working on it in the garage. We got all the edges sanded. We've got it painted. Color choice wasn't really under my control, but the kids love it. We also put in the liner for nothing to fall out through the water holes, just nailed down with little roofing nails along the way. We're going to put in a little layer of pea gravel. Bought a few bags of that today. We also ordered a yard of Purple Cow raised garden bed soil mixture. So that should be here tomorrow. So stay tuned. Tomorrow we should have it all filled up and ready for planting. So we've got our box built and painted and done. We've got the dirt in it. When we had the dirt dropped off, we asked the guy what it weighed. He was thinking about 1,600 pounds. So I figured with the gravel and the water, we're probably nearing 2,000 pounds. So it's not in the build section of the video, but I added these 2x4s, which are just screwed to the base 2x4. One for supporting the extra weight, and the other for when these outer pine boards start cupping because of the moisture difference inside versus outside. They'll start to turn a little, so those boards, one on each side, will just help hold it together a little better. And she's looking good. She's nice and sturdy and solid. We've got our goodies planted. Hopefully they come out nice. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, or if you have any questions or comments or want some tech specs and wood measurements, drop that in the comments and I'll respond as quick as I can. Thank you very much.